Okay, we are there. We are there. It's saying setting up your meeting for Facebook Live. That's what it's saying.
Yes, it's saying we're live now.
Okay, great.
Yep.
Okay, Charles then. Okay. I may have to mute the sound because of the feedback it may give me. Okay, so you all can feel free to share it where you should be there.
Okay, I just shared.
Mm-hmm. So yeah. I just want to make sure I'm not getting feedback. Okay. I'll minimize, and if I have to go to it, y'all will know what's going on, because Charles, I'm going to turn this over to your capable hands. Okay, yeah, you're there. I see you. Okay, great. It's off, so good for me. Okay. So I want to welcome everyone to this, the Path Forward Gospel Music Panel presented by UCON, the Alliance. And we have a wonderful panel here. We're going to talk about, our topic this evening is the future of choirs. And with our new normal, and since the pandemic, that has really brought up some interesting situations and scenarios for us and things to consider. It's an opportunity, as well as, making us have to make some necessary changes. And so this whole discussion is about how to move forward. And I want to turn this over to the facilitator for the evening, Charles Butler out of Washington, D.C. He's a minister of music at Ark of Safety Christian Church in the Upper Marlboro area. Okay, you need to mute your mic. Somebody's clicking on us. But he's the minister of music at Ark of Safety Christian Church in Upper Marlboro. He's also a music teacher and director, a vocalist, and he is the leader of a phenomenal group, Stellar Award nominated Charles Butler and Trinity. He's a very visionary, forward-thinking minister of music and artist. And I'm going to turn it over to his capable hands. How are you, Charles? And thank you so much for facilitating this discussion this evening on the future of choirs.
I'm well, thank you for having me, and I'm glad to see everyone that's here, that's on this panel on today. And I just wanted to just pretty much have a open conversation and just go over a few points that I've kind of written down. And the discussion that we're having again is future of choirs. And at this juncture, one of the concerns that I definitely wanted to talk about first, because we talked about before we went live, Charles Lawrence earlier was speaking about how they're having a spike where they are. And with that being said, with it being a spike, and it seems like we possibly, for some churches, may not be opening anytime soon. For the churches that are opening, we have to figure out what are we going to do with our choirs? How are we going to move forward and keep our people safe? I think that is really, really important. And I've been seeing, some Facebook Live concerts that people have been having, and even churches on Sunday mornings who some churches are still not practicing social distancing. So for some people, that's not a concern. For some, it is a concern. And I definitely wanted to have a discussion about that, because I just don't know what kind of signal it's sending to the world that we as the body of Christ aren't really practicing it in our churches, but we're expecting others to adhere to whatever. So I don't know. It's just kind of weird to me that we're still not doing it. I watch live concerts. They're not spraying down mics. They're sharing mics. I just kind of just wanted to get a just to hear what's your thoughts about this whole, how are we going to keep our people safe moving forward? I just think that's a discussion that we have to have in the body of Christ. Anybody want to kind of chime in on that? Any volunteers?
I mean, I didn't want to be first, but so I'm Greg Mitchell. Now living in Richmond, Virginia. Originally from South Carolina, but mainly lived in Brooklyn, New York. And I was Timothy Wright's minister of music for many, many years. So this topic is really interesting because there are some of us, even though this is the first time a pandemic of this sort has been here, we have been diving into technology for years. So even though we've not been presented with this, it's a situation where we're here, and because we always think next level, it's something that caught us off guard, but we was kind of ready for some things. Now, to go into Charles's questioning, it is very interesting how it is here now. I have seen some concerts, Charles, where they have not been practicing social distancing. At my church here in Richmond, Virginia, First Baptist Church, south side of Richmond, we're still doing, a few praise team members, a few musicians, and the minister and the pastors, and that's how we're doing it. But yeah, it's a shame that I guess we're not used to this new normal. So because we're not used to it, we're not trying to do those necessary things. So that is kind of sad on that end. I do have some suggestions later on that might can help the future. I don't want to talk about it now, but definitely before we end this Zoom, we can talk about some of the suggestions because we may not have the answers, but we definitely can offer some suggestions.
Charles,
You gotta unmute yourself. Yeah.
That part. Here we go. So, like the scientists are telling us, the louder that we speak and project, that's that makes the droplets or whatever travel at a longer distance. With that being said, we can't have rows anymore. It may just be one row. We have to just spread apart a little more. I think that we just have to think a little more smarter if we're going to come back into a physical building and still do church. We just can't do it as we've done it. We can still have church in some kind of capacity, but everything has to be modified. And I think that's the thing that I'm saying is that people aren't modifying their services. And even we're pre-taping at my church, we're pre-taping on Saturday mornings for Sunday morning services. And we also have temperature checks. That's also another thing that we may have to start implementing in our services. I mean, before you go in the choir room, I mean, that may have to be the new norm is you go to the choir room, before you put on your robe, you get your temperature check. I mean, I know this is stuff that we don't want to deal with. It's an extra step, but it's an extra step to possibly keep someone safe. I feel like we have to do every measure you can. Now, right now in my church, we're currently having maybe 4 people or 5 people on stage. It's a pretty large stage, and it's tape on the stage where everyone stands. You stand there, you have your assigned mic that you have, and we do it that way. So I think just I was grateful to even see at George Floyd's funeral how they had a person who was designated there to hand the new person coming on stage a newly sanitized microphone. Those are the things that we also have to think about. Even for us when we go on to minister out, if we have to, I have someone call me about taking a particular MC engagement, and I'm not worried about the rate. I'm worried about, can I have my own microphone all night? I mean, forget the money part. Like, it's just more so like, I want to live, you know what I mean? So at this point, where people have to think about how we moving forward just the whole way. And sometimes even business owners are getting offended when we have these kind of conversations that ask, you know, how often are you changing your mask? You know, how often, you know, different measures. I feel like as a patron, as a person in your congregation, we should be able to be prepared to answer these kinds of questions when our members come to us to ask us what safety measures have been put in place. Some people, they just have faith and they believe that this is just going to pass and we're going to go back to normal. But then we have some other people that we need to make sure that we keep safe. So if anybody want to chime in, please feel free to. This is definitely an open conversation. I know we have Terrence Dooley here. He's in Ohio. Terrence, I know you play at a church. You have your own community choir. What measures have your church put in place? Are you guys going virtual, or how are you guys doing church right now?
Thank you. First of all, thank you guys for having me. Really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you all. My church, we have been pre-recording our services. We originally, when we first started, we have like 9 people on the praise team, I think 9 or 10. And when we first started, everybody wanted to sing. And then I went back and I looked at the video. I said, okay, y'all are on top of each other. So I texted my pastor. I said, you know, I'm going to put them on a rotation and it's going to literally be 3 of them only. Because our stage area is not that big. It's not tiny, but it's not that big. So we have 3 people that are singing praise and worship, you know, background. And then we're sanitizing. They all have their own microphone. I think we have 9 anyway. So they all have their own microphone and they're all being sanitized before we begin. As far as my community choir is concerned, we have not met since the pandemic began. So we have not had a rehearsal. We have had some very small sectionals where there's at the most 5 people, but we have not met in total, you know, as a whole group. And I'm just very cautious about doing that. I really respect all of my people and I want everybody to be safe. And I was talking to a friend of mine in Toledo the other day by the name of Brian Thomas, and he said, you mess around and have a rehearsal and everybody gets sick. And the first thing they're going to say is they went to my rehearsal and died, you know? So I don't want anybody to have that to say about me, that they went to my rehearsal and woke up dead or took sick or any of that kind of stuff. So we've been very slow about getting things back together. And I still to this day don't have any word of when my church will be opening back up for full services or what that's even going to look like. So we're taking our time, and this is a very serious thing going on. And the reason it's so serious is because we don't know anything about it. You know, they said at first that it was, you know, transmitted this way. Then they said it was transmitted that way. Now they're saying if you don't have symptoms, then you're not contagious. And so they really don't know what they're talking about with this. So that makes it even more dangerous because we don't know about it. So with that being said, we're being very cautious and very slow about how we expose our people back to, you know, normal. And with that even being said, our choir has not been, our church choir has not obviously been on any of the programs that we've been pre-recording services. And so even when we open back up, we'll have to kind of see how that's going to look. So that's kind of how we've been doing things this way.
And I know as a minister of music, I know a lot of, at this point, we are now starting to see who our stronger singers are because we have to now depend on them with them holding microphones. So that's why I've always been adamant, whether it's my own personal choir or my choirs that I direct at the church, to really hear the singers individually, because and also there's a different type of stage presence that comes with holding a microphone versus being a choir member in a big section. That's another thing of seeing people who were just choir singers now have to hold a microphone. Some of these people look completely uncomfortable. This whole shift has literally shifted literally everything, especially with some community choirs that are literally used to singing with choirs, big numbers, sometimes with the stage presence. You know, when they were they could be on the back row in a section, it may not have to be as present in their section, but now you have only 15 singers, it's 5, 5, and 5, and now it's a camera zooming everywhere, and now that energy has to be kind of maintained throughout the entire set. Those are kind of conversations that a lot of people just never had to have, because you may have a choir and you always thought that you will always have a big mass group of people. Now these people are having to sing with microphones in their hand, and it's just like people are really, really uncomfortable. And it's amazing to see that that's a thing. And especially on my church choir, we have corded mics. We have like 3 cordless mics, and the rest are corded. So we keep them on stands. But just to even see that some choir members are now have to singing on a microphone, it's just all, this whole dynamic has all changed. So also just with having to space the singers out, we just have to figure out how are we going to move forward with the choir in this new dispensation that we're in. And it's just right now, big mass numbers, I don't think it's possible. I think that's where we are, and we have to understand that a big mass group of people on a stage is not going to work. And for some churches, that's not something they want to hear. But I think that's the reality. And anybody want to chime in, you can.
I have something to say about that.
Go ahead.
To say it that it can't work or won't work, I disagree with that.
Okay.
However, it is going to take some investing. It's interesting because a lot of people in the Virginia area, in regards to Richmond, Virginia, we've been on these Zoom conferences as well as these Zoom calls as well, and we've been trying to figure out what can we do. Well, the way my mind thinks, is what can we do to make sure we are good. So 2 ideas kind of came up to my head. One idea was, to try to invent, a mask for the singer. That was one. And I know, y'all might be looking at me strange, but I'm just saying that's one idea.
I'm with you.
But
I have a very creative mind.
right.
So with
But
the
the other
mask on
thing,
the singer,
Charles, I'm sorry to cut you off. The other thing too, some churches, they might have to invest, like you see a drummer is behind a shield. Some churches might have to invest in some type of shielded something. You know, I even thought about, okay, because people are wearing the shields. I even thought about that. So I think there are some things that can be done, and I do agree with you. I don't think it will be in mass numbers anymore. I
right?
definitely agree with you
Mass
with that.
numbers is my issue, and then
Right.
we have the reality of it is, um, some churches barely have monitors and barely have mics, and now we're telling them to invest in shields. We have to figure out,
Oh no, I got you.
yeah. So
But the thing about it is, listen, I got you. I understand. It's
yeah,
going to take, and a lot of churches that might can afford it is some of the mega churches. Now, as
right,
far as the smaller churches, I I really don't know, because
right.
even some of the smaller churches, they don't even have good streaming services, a good streaming.
Most churches started streaming when this happened, included mine.
Wow,
Yeah,
got
and
you.
a lot of churches, even churches that have a nice amount of members, and my church is a large, pretty large congregation. Um, we started streaming just when the pandemic happened, and there's a lot of churches in my area that started streaming in the pandemic. Some pastors felt that streaming takes away services. I know some a mega church here, when they started streaming, now they're down to one service. So some people felt that in this particular area, in the DC area, that streaming was going to take away from membership. So that's why some pastors didn't do it. So people have their various reasons as to why, but at this point we were forced to do it. So it's just like everyone's trying to play catch up. So if anyone else want to interject, they definitely can.
Well, you were talking about the shields. We just had that conversation about 3 days ago about shields, because what's happening not only in the choirs, it's happening just about everywhere. I mean, you're going to have those shields to be able, one, to communicate, and two, to do whatever. And as Gregory said, and hey, Greg, good to see you. You know, it's going to happen. The large choir, the 30 to 50 voice choir in some cases, and the 200 voice choir in others, they're going to be out for a minute, for a quick minute. But you know, you have to adjust. We're doing live services on Sunday, by the way, because I'm part of the media ministry. Stage is large enough that we can't have like 5 people there. You have 5 people, the ministry, the ministerial crew, the ministerial staff, and the media crew. So it is working that way, and it's working quite well. And as most of us on this call already know, my bishop has already said to our entire district of churches, I don't know when you're coming back, okay? And that's the fact of the matter. And as you said, Charles B., some of us, we were experimenting with social media and this type of service. The pandemic forced us all to do something. And in some cases, and I can only speak for our case, we've actually grown. I mean, we've actually have more folks watching online than we ever had coming to the church. So, you know, that's the kind of blessing that you get. And let me shout out to Pastor Remus and Pastor Mia, because that's the fountain of praise here in Houston where the Floyd funeral was. So yeah, they're of excellence. And yeah, every time a new microphone was up there, it was being handed to them from somebody who had already sanitized the mic. So.
Yeah, so, and like you said, a lot of churches haven't missed a beat. I talked to a pastor yesterday who said that every Mother's Day, he would expect a budget shift, a decline in budget. And now, you know, this was the first time ever in his history of being a pastor that he didn't experience a loss. So between, and then of course that it depends on what area these churches are in, because I know churches that are in the Atlantic City, New Jersey area where majority of the people work at hotels. Since the hotel industry was out of work, therefore the people can't work, so they're not tithing, you don't have income, versus here in my area, we are pretty much a federal government based state, or we're not, or area rather. So a lot of our people still just working from home, so we still make budget. But I get what you're saying, but in terms of like the shield, I think it could definitely work if churches would just invest in it. So it's definitely a brilliant idea. The mask, man, you go ahead and invent that and get that patent and trademark, because I got to hear how that's gonna work. I got to hear how that's gonna work, because I'm like, will you open it when you sing? Yeah, that's.
Hey,
that's,
hold on,
that's
wait.
interesting.
So first
That's
of all,
really interesting.
you heard it here first. That's number one. Number
Okay,
two,
this is live, so we're gonna keep it. You're gonna keep it. This is
yeah,
your evidence right here, man.
yeah. No, but number two, I was telling a friend about it, and he said, "Listen, the world is they are already waiting for it, because they have a show on called the what? The Masked Singer."
Finger. Well, listen, you got a point. You got a point. You got a point.
So I'm just saying, you know, so in the next couple of weeks, seriously, I'm trying to find some people that can really start the process of this and see what can be done, because the bottom line is, when you're talking about a mask and you're talking about singers, you really want something, first of all, where you can breathe.
Man.
Secondly, you think you really want a situation where you're protecting what's going out and you're protecting what's coming in. And what's most important to the singer or to the directors is that you have clarity with what's coming out, because as you know, if we had masks on, there would be some type of, it wouldn't be as clear. So, it's something to think about. And trust me, that's what my head has been.
That's good. And I
And
think that's worth looking at because, like the face shields, those, the face shields that are
mhm,
becoming more popular. We're doing something like that in the studio. Like in the studio now, we just started doing um, a live show. Our pastor does a live talk show, and that was the first thing I had to think about in my mind was safety. It's a small, intimate studio. Charles, you've been in that studio. You know how that studio looks, and we have put up, just like you would see, in the beauty salons, the barbershops, we have the petitions up there. It's sections. They have their sections there, but they also have the face shield on. But it couldn't be the mask, like you said, because they would be muffled. But they can talk right through that face shield, and it's coming across clear. Now you're gonna have to use a good mic. You're not using. You're gonna have to use a very good mic for that, and our mics are great. In the studio, but like you said, all of those are protections for, because you got to have board ops in there, you got to have all of those things. So that's a good point. And I think, to something, Charles, that you said too, is, everybody's comfort level. I know everybody else in here, and you can chime in, you can put it in the chat or raise your hand, if you have a comment or question, and we'll definitely acknowledge you. But I know, if I go into a business and the person doesn't have a mask on and they aren't have any gloves that's serving me, my comfort level drops. And I've seen that statistically that people, are looking for, they're relieved when they see business, church, whoever that are practicing safety measures in these times. So you're right. Everybody's gonna be looking and observant of how proactively, you're doing things to measure their comfort level, because they have to look out for their own safety. And the last thing I want to mention to you all, how do you all feel about the like Oakwood Church used the screen? I saw them do that, present that, where the guy had everybody on the big LED screen, because that means now people from all over could join the choir, and the screen is out there and he's out front directing, but the people aren't there, they're just being projected onto the screen, all of the choir members that way. Now I'm sure that's a major undertaking, but that's safe, but you've got your whole choir there. And I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. But again, cost factor of doing that. So obviously there need to be some options.
Linda, let me just chime in a little bit on the last thing that you talked about. And I'm sorry, y'all. You have to understand, and I apologize, but this has been a topic for a while, and I've been on so many of these. So it is my privilege to share any information or any ideas that I may have. The last thing you said, Linda, you talked about the choirs on the screen. Well, that's called the virtual choir presentation. And it's interesting because before we came together, I was sharing with Linda that, it's interesting that there are some of us that may not be our color. They knew about virtual choirs for a long time. And we're just jumping on that bandwagon. So this is definitely a time that we can reinvent some things, and we can and I mean, it's just interesting. It's an interesting time, and I don't even want to go all the way over here because we're talking about the pandemic. But I mean, isn't it interesting now how, because some CCM artists are not speaking up for social injustice, it's like now we're talking about not singing their music. It's an interesting time right now.
It's A lot going on. A couple of comments. We got quite a few comments. Chris Bird, who chime in at any point, says he loves the idea of the mass singer. And Sylvia, who's actually on screen, said they did something like it at her church. And then in the Facebook Live comments, hi to Dennis Bird Sr., who says face shields will be the new normal. And I believe that it's becoming like a style. And yeah, I have one and I love it because it's hands-free, especially as hot as it is. Y'all in that mask, you will be burning up. So I'm thinking, you know, and you can breathe better with that. Okay, and we have, yeah, Tanika says, what app other than Zoom could you do the virtual choir presentation on that would be more efficient without a voice delay? Okay, that's a good question. Anybody know?
The thing of it is that those are not done on apps. So that's another thing that pastors, these pastors are now seeing these virtual choirs and they're thinking that this is an app that's done. No, the choir members are sending in videos. There is someone that has to either overdub those vocals. So you still have to gather some people. I know one church here, they sent their praise team all recording equipment. Each praise and worship member all got recording equipment via mail and a green screen. Every singer. So, and I'm not talking about no cheap recording equipment. So it's a top of the line church. So they're recording. They're literally in their house during the week stacking vocals. So our praise and worship members have gone from just being regular church choir members or church praise team members to now doing production. So they're getting the track and they're laying the vocals, and these choir members, they're singing and a lot, they're not really using their voices because you just, it's really hard. And Chris Bird, I'm gonna let you chime in, but you said you're producing a few virtual choir videos right now, so you can. This is your topic. There you go, man.
Yeah. How's everybody doing? Good to see you all. Yeah, I'm producing a few virtual choir videos. I did one a few weeks ago, and we kind of presented it on Facebook and on YouTube. But as far as I know, I don't think that can be done live unless there's something that I don't know about. But I did some research because when I first saw it, I did a lot of research trying to figure out how to do it and figured out, okay, this is a video production basically. So that's what I've been working on. And I got some friends that's been doing the same thing as well. So I don't know any other way around that, but I do love the idea of a mass singer. We got that show, and maybe that's something we can get some information about how, you know, those masks look like the whole costume looked like they're really hot inside of there. So, you know, if there's something that could be invented where you still can stay cool, you probably have to have some in-ears on, you know, on a microphone. That would be cool. That would be awesome. But I think we gotta be prepared to be in this situation for quite a while, because we got a meeting tomorrow, and we're gonna try to talk with our worship team about, you know, breaking down to a smaller group, and figuring out how we're going to move forward. But we haven't started back up yet, but we're planning to do that soon. Right now, we've just been recording with just me and my pastor and a small team a video team. So, yeah.
Yeah, because I don't think people understand that those are literally like productions. So I know the choirs here, they're doing videos. Each choir member has to be against a white wall. You pretty much take that video and have to send it in, and that video editor has to sync all of those parts all together. And then someone is literally recording the background for the track that you're hearing the choir sing to. And the crazy thing is a lot of these choir members don't even know that it's not their voice. So they're singing just as hard as they want to sing. And I'd be like, if y'all only knew, this is not y'all singing on there, but you know, it is what it is. So.
Well, I got actually my group, they singing for real. And I
okay, good.
even though I still have the track with the vocals that I did from the actual song, because I'm using songs that we already, have put out there. So I still have those vocals, but they're singing for real. So we're hearing a blend of their vocal for real. And then the lead singer, which is then me, I'm singing that for real. So none of us are really lip syncing. We're doing it for real.
And that's one thing I never thought we would see, is that the minister of musics now are turning into engineers, recording engineers. We're a lot of the minister of music are no longer just, you just go in and teach the choir some songs. We're literally having to facilitate many recordings, some on a weekly basis. They have to pretty much get this done on a weekly basis, and people have no idea how much work it is to do those videos on a weekly basis. And so the video virtual choir piece is still very interesting. For my church, we haven't done it yet because we still are gathering with live singers, 4 singers, 3 musicians, social distance. So we haven't done it, but I think if we stay out long enough, it's going to have to be a possibility. One mega church here already told their congregations they won't be seeing them until 2021. So we have to figure out, where are we going from here? Anybody have any other?
Yeah, you got Angela. She's got a question.
Yeah. Hi, this is Angela. And I have a question. I was just listening to Chris Bird as well. So as we go into this this virtual move, and I heard Charles say at the beginning, about streamlining, whether it's the choir, streamlining the praise team. How are you going to go in there and communicate this to the choir or the praise team that, praise team, we had 10, now we're going down to 3. Choir, we had 50, but now we're going down to 20. And I guess I heard Chris Bird. So what does this communicate? Because we got to do the same thing, but you want to make sure, I guess, that when you go in, you're not losing. You need the strong vocals, but you're not losing people, or you're not discouraging other people. You know what I'm saying? You still want to keep them, but you don't want to lose them, but you can't use them. Is that
Angela, can I say something?
Yes.
You just said it. You want to use them, but you don't want to lose them.
Ain't that?
That's it. There is no big conversation of who does it and who doesn't. I wished in some cases, but of course, we're in church. So because we're in church, there's some things we cannot do. But I wish choir members could audition. Because, sometimes we audition for, Charles, I see you. But I'm saying, I wish they can audition, because one thing that this has shown us, it has definitely shown us who's strong and who's weak.
Right.
Why can't they audition?
They can't audition because most of our pastors want numbers.
Right, but biblically, it is something that should be done, because the Bible says the singers were appointed
and skilled.
So in that appointment, there had to be some type of system where they had to audition. They had to first make sure that they could sing, because I wouldn't want nobody up there that really just can't sing. That ain't their ministry. And I've had my church choir audition before. I've had them do that before. Even though they were already up there, we just said, look, I'm going to have everybody audition, and we're going to find out maybe this ain't your ministry. And we evaluated them. And so they would know where they are and what if they needed to work on some things. But if that just wasn't their ministry, it's like, hey, maybe you should go join the usher board, because I know you love singing, but it's not your ministry.
We have a comment here. I'm sorry, go ahead.
In 2020, the singers are skilled and divas.
Mm-hmm.
And also we have in the scriptures, they were they were appointed, and now they're begged. We have to beg the singers to do anything. And we're just in a different day and time. I remember when I was coming up, you couldn't get me not to come to church. You couldn't get me I wanted to come to choir rehearsal. Like it's something I wanted to be a part of. Now it's not a thing for people to be on choirs. They either want to be on the praise team or they want to put a single out on their own in the congregation. So we don't have a lot of people who want to just serve in a mass group of people, because in mass settings, you're not the star. You have to participate. And so those are conversations that we don't have to have, but I'm definitely equipped to have them. So you have to just tell these people that it's what it is. If you are a team player and it's for the team, if you know that you're the weakest link, because if you want to know if you're the weakest link, solo that mic. Do your 6 singers, bring them in, record it, and send them their track of their own mic. It's like a white washcloth. It will tell you the truth.
Right.
And it's what it is. You got to understand where we are right now. Our pastors, our people want the best. If people tune into our broadcast on Facebook or wherever means, YouTube Live, and you get up there with poor sound and the singers can't sing, you lose engagement immediately. I watch so many broadcasts. I go to storefronts, megas, middle churches just to gauge how things are going. And as soon as that choir would get up, you will see all these numbers just start dropping, because now we have the option to click out. We couldn't leave out of service when the choir was bad before, but now we have the option to hit exit and go to the next church. So when you are just giving just anything, people don't have to stay. They may still support the ministry, they may still tithe, but they may not stay to watch anymore because they don't have to. They have options.
You're right. You're
Wow,
right.
that's amazing. A comment here, and Terrence, you've had your hand up for a while. We'll come right to you, Terrence. But Dennis Bird Sr. says, shout out to my brother Chris, another new normal, using the cloud for worldwide ministry, just as Christ used the cloud for his ascension. Okay.
Amen.
Amen.
Anybody else want to chime in?
Yeah, go ahead, Terrence.
Yeah, I was going to just kind of piggyback on what everybody was saying. I actually had to have some of those difficult conversations recently. We'll be honest, we had to have some of those difficult conversations because the truth of the matter is, the way things are going right now, we just can't use everybody. You know, we want to have, I would love to have everybody, but for safety reasons, and then also for strength reasons, as some of you said, you can really tell who can do what during this pandemic. And Angela, what you said was really just kind of what I said. We want to use everybody, but at this time, we kind of have to do what we have to do. I also wanted to say, a lot of us may get left behind in what's going on or how to move forward because of budget. Like I hear some of us talking about the Mass Singer. Well, the Mass Singer probably has a $100,000 sound team budget, and so a lot of our churches are really using Radio Shack equipment sometimes, and now this pandemic can do one of two things. It can make you kind of take a look at what you really have and get better from it, or it's going to expose you. So is being exposed actually can really work on your behalf if you have somebody that can say, hey, you guys are struggling with your stream, here's a better way. And so I think that's what we have to do during this time. Sit down and look at your stream, listen to it, and say, okay, the mix was bad, the voices were okay, but the mix was bad, so this is the time for our sound man to get better. The drummer was missing the track, so let's leaving the track, so maybe it's time for the drummer to get better, or maybe we need to get a new drummer, or whatever. But I think it's really a time where you can take a look at your ministry and gauge how to move forward. And then also, even though we may not have multi-million-dollar or multi-thousand-dollar budgets, there is a cost-effective way to do everything. And even if it's equipment, there's websites that you can buy where you can pay as you go and stuff like that. But I think it's really just a time where we can take a look at what we have and slowly get yourself ready, because we really just don't know what the future is going to look like. And the best way to get left behind is by, doing nothing.
No, I think you're so right, Terrence. And now is the time. That's why we're having these conversations, because you don't wait until you're back out there to address that. Now is the time to do the planning, to do the looking to see what's the most cost effective way, and to prepare. You don't wait until it's go time to do all of that. We have some other comments. Tanika says, that's true. Nobody understands the concept of serving these days. Sylvia, I agree. Charles, I think that we should audition. I also feel we should have a servant heart, no matter if you lead or do backgrounds. The question is, do we have a heart for God? And then Dennis Bird Sr., you should have been on this Zoom. Okay, but we appreciate your comments. The pandemic is moving the church out of the four walls and into all the world where they need to be via modern technology. And that is true. We have been pushed to try to some new things, to engage in some new ways. And even as you said, Greg, it isn't that it hasn't been here, but we just kind of passed it by and said, well, maybe we'll get to it later, but later is now. And something else that you all say a lot that concerns me is how you feel, or would you agree, and I'd love to hear your comments, that in gospel music, and do you feel, even on the ministry side, that we're always catching up, that we seem to be behind the curve? Why do you think that is?
I don't think technology has ever been our friend. Even with some radio stations, in comparison to some of the urban formats and gospel, sometimes the gospel stations are a little antiquated. So it's just like, in all things church, we don't always want to invest. I think the budget has been our problem. I think that's really the bottom line. We can have ideas all day, but our ideas without funding is just an idea. It would never manifest. And so a lot of times, we look at what other people do and they're doing it well, but sometimes we're just always behind the ball. But anybody can definitely chime in as well. But I think budget is our biggest issue with advancing. And sometimes we don't want to, when we're in position, have certain positions, we also don't want visionaries, which are sometimes the younger millennials, to come in to hear what they have to say. By the time we want to listen to them, the idea has kind of shifted, the world has taken it and grabbed on and moved on, and now we're late again. So sometimes it's just a cycle.
Well, I think also, I remember it's 2020 now, like in 2010, a lot of pastors thought social media was the devil, So, I mean, it can be budget, and then also just the small-mindedness and inability to see the future of some of the leaders. I'm just being honest, but there just was a lot of pastors, y'all on that Facegram and y'all on that Twitbook, and all that kind of stuff. And now look at us, all of us are on there and relying on it to get messages out to our members and get messages out to our people. So I think that leadership needs to always be open and available to different platforms. I remember Bishop Jakes came to Columbus a few years ago and he said, y'all get on and follow me on Instagram. He said, I got an Instagram, I got a Twitter, I got a Facebook. He said, if they come out with a flip-flop, I'm getting on that too. But I think a lot of pastors need to think about that. As soon as something gets out, you should get on it and see how you can use it for ministry. I think that's very important.
Amen. We, as Charles was talking about earlier, the technology, because I had a battle and my senior management had a battle with the school. That was before I became on senior management, about doing the technology and doing the technology for not only for the station, but since we're a training facility for students that go through the university, I want to send you out on wide orbit automation for radio, which is the industry standard. I want to send you out on Music Master, which is the music scheduling program, which is the industry standard. And had a major battle with us getting an upgrade because, you know, we have the tendency to piecemeal stuff. And in some cases, piecemeal don't work. No, you cannot piecemeal this system. You're going to have to spend the $73,000 to upgrade the system. That's the end of it. And if you don't, you start losing folks. And, you know, and I know with it, I know it doesn't just expand through the institutions and the universities and the radio stations, as both you, Charles B. and Terrence said, and Chris as well. You also have these issues with ministry that doesn't want to move forward. I can't do MP3 ministry on an 8-track. I'm sorry, it ain't gonna work. So you have to, you know, you have to put some money aside. It's just like when you tell artists that want to get into this business, and I'll talk to you later, Linda, about what we talked about. That want to get into this business. It's called a budget, and it's called a budget for advertising.
Mm-hmm.
So just like you have to have a budget, and it's a budget for technology. And as Terrence said earlier, there is a way you can do this with a budget for technology. There's much cheaper ways than the $73,000 upgrade we had to have to move the radio station into the 21st century. There's ways to do it. You just have to do the research and invest not only your money, but the time in finding the right ways to do things.
And I also think that that's why the others, sometimes their music can advance sometimes because they will have the budget. They're not afraid to spend. And as we know, there's an old saying that scared money don't make money.
Amen.
And you can't be scared. You can't be scared to spend it. Sometimes you lose it a few times. Of we would have an idea, and we would sit on that idea, and then later on, years from now, you will see that idea manifested somewhere and be like, oh, you know, I had that idea to do something, but we just won't move when it's time to move. And I just think that we have to just get with technology before it passes us by.
Well, I agree with you on that, Charles, very much so. I think that hopefully this has taught us that we need to always be innovating, whether it's individually, whether it's ministry, industry, whatever we're doing. There should be some investment, as you all are saying, in innovation to some degree. We should be trying something new. Like Greg was saying, we should always be looking at whatever that next thing is that's coming out, especially when it comes to technology, for sure, or whatever it is, and just examining it and saying, is there any possibility of using this? Like you said, Charles, whether it be to minister or whatever, and if so, how? And I mean, most businesses, they do have an innovative arm, or they look out and see that someone else is doing something and they partner, you know, they bring them on under their wing, you know, to help them further their causes. We have to be more forward thinking. I mean, this through our educational system. Educational system wasn't even ready to go online, even though online, you know, programs were coming up, you know, they were being advertised and people were doing it. And like you said, they were discounting it and saying it wasn't good. But guess what? As you all said, everybody had to go online. And so all of those schools, colleges were having to play catch up in the middle of a pandemic. They can never be caught like that again, because the message to us all, which is why the path forward becomes important, is that we must be innovating. Like Twitch is new out there, right? And, you know, video gamers and others, is there an opportunity to use that? You know, as new things come, we have to be exploring and we have to put the money in. And like you said, from the radio side, Let's look, just an example, let's look at iHeartMedia. Look at what they did the beginning of the year. Flip me out. They let so many people go at the end of the year, and they sent the majority of their people remote in January, sent them gear, specialized gear. The company was calling me, sharing about this specialized gear, because I was just looking for gear because I thought winter season, could be rough. I'm not going to be able to get into the studio, but I want to be able to make sure, all the different things that I may need to do at home, what's out there. And he was sharing with me, iHeart sent these remote kits home, and I thought, wow, they were bloodletting, but they were better prepared for this pandemic than the majority of media was. And thank you, Pastor Dennis Burke, for joining us. And Angela, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
I know. I do have another question, because this topic is like really dear to me, because I'm a choir director as well. And Charles, my son Ernest, who's praise and worship. So
Yes.
yeah, so my question is, let's talk about the virtual doing your rehearsals. How are you going to handle your rehearsals? Are you doing a Zoom? How are you handling to make sure that once you get that music back, that everybody has their parts and know what they're doing? How, if you're doing a new song, old songs, but after a while, we don't know how long we're going to be in this pandemic, so you might want to do something new.
In terms of choir, we haven't come together. So in terms of our praise team, a lot of the praise teams that we all have should be a little more skilled. And so you should be able to send them the music in advance, and you should be able to meet the day of a little earlier to go over that music. So we shouldn't have to come out an additional night during the week. Not for, I know for us, we don't have to. But
Okay.
we just would come a little earlier. So we normally would stream about 10 a.m. on Saturdays for our Sunday services. We'll record rather on 10 a.m. on Saturdays, and then maybe we'll meet about 8:45 to just go over the music. So if everybody's pretty much singers, you shouldn't be really going over parts. You may be going over inflections, but not really parts.
Okay.
So especially if it's standardized music. Right now, we've been trying to sing standardized music that can just try to get us through. Now, eventually, we may have to learn some other music but right now, we've been trying to just send out music that we just know everybody know. That's kind of simple, but eventually, we're going to have to really, really start getting more music in our repertoire.
Yeah.
Well, let me dive. I'm sorry, Charles. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I'm saying let me dive in because shout out to my church, which is First Baptist South Side of Richmond. We've had virtual rehearsals, and also shout out to the Richmond chapter of the Gospel Music Workshop of America. We've also been having virtual rehearsals, and basically, Missy, how the virtual rehearsal happens is it's a rehearsal on Zoom. And just like this setting, there's basically the minister of music or the person that's teaching the song, they will be the only one that talks. And basically, and so basically everybody else get a chance to listen. So the sopranos will listen to their part, the altos will listen to their part, the tenors will listen to their part.
Interesting. Okay.
You cannot sing together.
Wow.
You cannot sing together. I don't know if y'all seen this seen this senior choir on Facebook Live. Well, not Facebook Live. Try it, and you cannot do that. But here is the good news about Zoom. Shout out to Zoom. The good news about Zoom is you can record what you do, and when you record what you do, you can send that recording out to the choir members. And they will have the experience of being in the Zoom rehearsal, as well as they will have the experience of having the recording of the rehearsal. So that's the blessing about Zoom. So my church choir, we've rehearsed, as well as the Richmond chapter Gospel Music of America, as well as CAD, the Contemporary Adult Division of Richmond, as well.
Okay, good, good.
Awesome.
Oh,
We got Pastor, I'm sorry, Angela, you got another question?
nope, that's good. Thank you.
That's really great. Isn't it amazing what we can do with this technology, Pastor? We can adapt, is what it says. We can really shift gears. Pastor Dennis Byrd, I know you've been waiting with your hand up, and I want to share this comment. Will Griffin has a bunch. Yep, Greg Mitchell, the next thing, face shields. He says definitely have been having rehearsal online. So shout out to Will Griffin on Facebook Live. Pastor Byrd, go ahead.
Yes, well, good evening, everybody, and thanks for allowing me to come in. I'm bringing to the table 5 decades of experience in the music industry as a choir director and all of that. And as a gospel artist, I've worked with the Gospel Music Workshop back in the 70s. He Saved a Wretch Undone. I was 19, and I directed and taught that to the choir, recorded it, all of that. And I'm the writer of Genesis, which I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with. But one of the things I wanted to inject, before there was Zoom, okay, there was the capability of doing virtual rehearsal. All you need is your cell phone. All you need to do is videotape yourself doing the rehearsal as if you had the choir in front of you. I've done it. I did it years ago. We had a reunion rehearsal, and Chris was involved, my brother Chris. I live in Atlanta, and we were having a 40-year reunion of the choir that I organized in high school 40 years ago. And we were having a concert at the park. We did all of the songs. Some of the songs that we did from back then, most of them were from back then. And we taught them in a virtual rehearsal. We actually uploaded the MP4 of the video and made that available to everybody that was going to be singing. And that was our rehearsal. That was our rehearsal. There was no Zoom. We did that before there was a such thing as a Zoom. So you don't even need the Zoom to do it. And in fact, you'll find that it's easier to do the way I just described. And all you got to do is just use your cell phone. Use your cell phone, and make sure it most of them will format it into an MP4, and people can watch that on their phones. They can rehearse whenever it's convenient for them to rehearse on their laptops, on their phones, on the job. They can listen, they can watch, they can do it whenever they want to. So that's the way to go. The virtual rehearsal is the way to go, but you don't even need Zoom to do it. You can use your cell phone.
Amen.
Thank you.
Anybody else want to chime in with that? All right. Well, that's
While
all
they're
I
thinking
have.
about it, while they're thinking about it, I was going to, while they're thinking that over, I was going to also say I heard some very good comments and conversations. That's why I was excited when I was able to even type in some comments. You guys are awesome, and you're covering some very good points. The church will be left behind if they don't jump on the bandwagon. A lot of churches still are doing the offering baskets and not even chiming in to card swiping for tithes and offerings. There's still so many churches that have not gotten on board, and some of them are regretting it now. You really need to take advantage of the modern technology, and I really think that if we look at the Christian principles that we've been preaching and teaching about for years, it includes being innovative. You even look in Revelations and you'll see where they not only song, church is not just singing old songs, we're singing new songs. And new songs is part of what the movement is all about. So we do want to do new things. be innovative in every kind of way you can, and don't think of everything as being the devil's instrument. I remember in church, we had to fight for instruments because when drums first came into our church, members were saying it was the devil's instrument. When the organ first came in years ago, that's the devil's instrument. No, it's not. God is the author of music. He created it. The devil has tried to take it and distort it. But remember, God is the one who created it. So we need to use our innovative skills, use our minds to think of creative ways to keep up with the times and still get the message out there.
Here's a comment from Will Griffin. He's saying that Zoom helps with new music. I'm asking questions and visuals. He said, but there are many ways, of course. And I think maybe this opportunity, again, the pandemic definitely has, those cons, but we can see many pros coming out of the adversity that, we are facing and have faced. So hopefully now a lot more ears are tuned to, what, you should have been doing some of these things all along, and you can't let that die out. You've got to develop a team that's responsible for innovation. You got to make sure, you're explaining why this is going to be beneficial in ministry, what the investment's going to be, and weighing all of the different options of how to get it done. But, but if you let these coals burn out, then you'll be starting all over again. And, and unfortunately, there might be some that get left behind, those who are unwilling to change. I mean, change is the name of the game. I mean, almost every day, look at every week, things are rapidly changing, and the effects are far reaching. I mean, it's not just impacting us. It could have a ripple effect as far as around the world, depending on what it is. We've seen that happen, even with the protesting, that had a ripple effect around the world. This virus has had a ripple effect around the world. But I think, our path forward is to, as Charles was saying, embracing technology, developing those teams wherever you are, and making sure that those hard conversations have to be held. Now is the time you get to do a lot of things everybody's talking about that you didn't have a chance to do. And, and for a lot of very good reasons, some even life and death reasons, because CDC has talked about all that, the offering bucket, passing the bucket, communion. I mean, it's so many things that are going to change about the way that we have done a lot of things. But God he's really doing a new thing, and we got to grab hold and go forward, and like you said, for those who are young, who been wanting to do things, or those of you real tech savvy, now organ is the only instrument that has oil in it. Okay, Terry. That's
a good one.
And Linda, another thing is a lot of churches are just finding out that, but some churches are now, the preacher wants to play music and then preach. A lot of churches are just finding out that they need a license to stream the music. So Facebook
yes,
is now, they're now muting the part, their broadcast now, and they don't know why. And that's because you can't play the music. You got to have a license for it. So the part that they're playing, even sometimes one person went live and tried to play music for offering during the offertory part where people could give online, and they muted it. So you got to have a plan B, even with trying to just play a song you hear off the radio on your Facebook live stream.
Well, that is correct. And just like you said, all of this technology was here. That's always been there. But, because Facebook has just, was just flagging it at first and not taking it down, people operating in that gray area. And I'm so glad you mentioned that, because I was like, I'm not going to bring this up, because that opens up a whole nother can of worms when I heard you all talking about adding to your repertoire. But I mean, those kinds of things are very important, getting a license to stream live and to have that music going for, that is going to be very important. And if you use any pre-recorded music, or if somebody's using an accompaniment track, all of that becomes important because there's someone, you know, who has royalties coming to them as a result of that. And that is where we are at this time. And we've got to encourage, you know, the ministries or the individuals or whoever to be very responsible, because people are going to come for them now. You've got to have these licenses, and the artists have to be a part of organizations so that they can, you know, also, that's a whole new revenue stream. And, you know, it's theirs, and that's the only way they're going to be able to get it. So you were right. There's a lot of responsibility now. Twitch is doing the same thing. Some are saying it's even happening on YouTube that way. And so
Facebook as well. You can't.
Oh yeah, Facebook is getting real fierce with it.
People was wondering why Kurt Franklin and Fred Hammond was only playing small portions of the song, because now it was effective literally that Friday before they went to do the battle on Sunday. So it's only 90 seconds.
Wow. Okay. So see, these are all the new things. So everybody's got to get the licenses. You got to get the license, whether it be from an organization like CCLI, but you've got to get it. They only have a certain catalog though.
Right.
So if, you know, if it's not in that catalog, then you're reaching out to find out and get those permissions and have that documentation. But it's very important because everybody's looking at it, because so much is online now. I mean, everything's online.
And it doesn't matter with Facebook, because if you do that and play any part of a song long enough, you will get a message saying that Sony Music has flagged your video, or Warner Music Group has flagged your video because it has music on there that belongs to someone else. And then you have to go through the process of maybe doing that, and your thing is partially muted until they clear that up.
That's correct. And you are not covered under religious copyright for this. You know, that's only in a live service setting.
Right.
Once you are streaming it live, that's a whole nother thing. And once that service is archived and stays somewhere, now you're syncing music to video, and you need a sync license. So you're getting into a couple of different categories. And Angela, you have your hand up. Angela.
Muted. You're muted, Angela.
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It brings me back to when Donnie McClurkin had his service and they cut him, but he was playing his own music. So did he have to have a license? He was very upset.
Yes. He still has to have a license.
Yes, ma'am.
Facebook rejected my own song, and my distributor is Sony. So I could not put my own song on my own page. I had to wait for Sony to clear it.
Wow. Whoever those master recording, that's I mean, it's a lot happening. And there's like a new study. If you go out now, I was just talking about this in another setting about it's a copyright study 512, where they're asking for it to be more aggressively pursued online, because the labels know that that's going to be a rich source of revenue because of where we are now. Because this is going to be this way for a while. You know, it's not ever going away, but the heavy use, there's no vaccine. So we're going to be here, or at least for another year.
Yeah, absolutely.
They know that.
And you were talking about, Charles B., about the packages, the remote packages for recording. We were there. If you saw the OWN project with Yolanda and Tamala Mann and all of them, all they did was send Yolanda a phone, a light, and a stand. And all she did was call it in to the producers, and everything else we set up in the studio, because she did it from our studio. So all we had to do was set the scene up, and they sent the light, the phone, and all they did was dial it into a producer, and then they all combined. Because like I said, we had to stay there when she actually did that for the OWN series. So the technology's there. As we've all said, in some form or fashion, we all have to just get on board with the technology and do what we need to do, and do things in excellence. You know, we were talking about auditioning choir members. We talking about auditioning musicians. We had a major discussion about lighting at our church piece to do the things live. So all that, you know, you have to make the investment and you have to go for it.
Absolutely. Any other comments out there? Anybody else have anything you want to add? It's been a great session. Brings up a lot, you know, and I think, you know, we know some of the things that we have to do, and we want to get in front of the decision makers to make sure, you know, that they're on board, that everybody is aware, and even new people coming in, you know, understand what they've got to do out gate. You know, I mean, you just got to start off on a very good foot, embracing all of this technology and hopefully our ministries as well, because we're going to move forward and we want to be able to run, you know, really run, hit the ground running as things are opening up. And we need to be thinking about that. You know, how do we do that? How we're going to travel, how we're going to do, you know, any live events again, and, you know, all of those things. So it's very interesting. We do these sessions every 2 weeks. Our next one, okay, yes, Pastor Des, I'm gonna come right to you. Our next one is June 27th. And Charles Hudson will be doing that one. We will be talking with radio, what radio is thinking about. So we'll have a good radio panel then. And we hope that, you know, you all feel free to join us. Thank you all for joining us. Pastor Dennis, you have something to share with us. Go ahead.
Yeah, just one more to piggyback on
yes,
the last one. We have now kindergartners. I'm an educator, and at my school, kindergartners are learning coding. And so what I'm saying is, with that, keeping that in mind, when we're working with our youth, because we need to make sure we focus in on them, you know, to keep things moving, they're ready for this modern technology age. I mean, they're really ready. And so it'll be, you know, it would be foolish for us not to take advantage of that. So as we are working on modern things, just remember these young folk are probably a step ahead of us already, because they're getting it very early.
Yeah, I think that's very important. I think, you know, paying attention to consumer behavior as it relates to, you're right, what new things they're into, or what's being done, even in the general marketplace, is very important, because we're to go into all the world and minister the gospel. And, you know, the technology is definitely going to be the major way we do it. It's here, we're doing it now, and it's going to be the even greater part of what we do. I don't think it's ever going to go away. Do you all see yourselves just turning off everything? You know, even once we have a vaccine, do you all think you'll just turn off everything and it won't be important to you to use social media anymore ever again?
I am not taking the vaccine.
Me neither. Nope.
Okay. I just said when it comes available. I ain't mean to get y'all started.
That's a whole nother topic, and we ain't got time.
You don't have to take it. Okay, you'll have to take it. Just when it becomes available.
I actually think that you can't go backwards from here. You have to keep doing what you're doing, because there's going to be a lot of seasoned saints that are not going to be rushing back to sit in nobody's pews. And so you have to make sure that if you have 3 cameras set up now, when the church opens back up, you need to still have them 3 cameras set up, and not just jack your phone over there and think that, you know, that's going to be good enough. So you can't go backwards. You got to keep pushing forward.
Absolutely agree. And to embrace it, even when the pandemic is over, having both options available. You know, being able to come to church, worship together, you know, however long social distancing will be in place, you know, that's, you know, to be seen, but to be able to do both is what's going to help the ministry to go forward. So we definitely won't be throwing modern technology away after the pandemic is over. I don't think we should.
I think the church was just caught off guard this time, but hopefully, if God forbid, if there's a next time, the church should be more prepared.
It came like a thief in the night, huh, Angela?
I promise you. All the way. All the way.
I think that this is right. This is really one of the biggest ways that we can go out into all the world, and preach the gospel. You know, we've been so confined to the four walls of the church. Many churches are just so used to coming together like a social club and not really doing anything outside of that. And so this is just a way for us to do that. And I think it's great. Some pastors may not even want to go back to doing church like they used to because they probably got a little stress. They ain't got to, they just doing their ministry from their house, and they ain't got to deal with, being all the and dealing with their issues and problems.
See, you're right.
See? Now, one of the things we really didn't have a chance to talk about is, and you're talking about time. Now, some of us have cut our services down to 1 hour and 15 minutes.
Oh, it's a must do.
To 75 minutes. Now, when we all come back to, doing some of this within the confines of the church, and we have this option, life's going to get real interesting.
But the CDC guidelines say keep the services shorter to 1 hour.
And they really don't want us to do, from what I heard, they don't really want singing. They're saying
no congregational singing.
That we're not singing. So, we can't have church without singing, but, I think it should be cut down. We're going to have to cut it down.
Yeah. And like I said, that's probably another discussion for another day.
Right, a whole one.
The order of worship has also changed. Yeah.
It really has.
Yeah. And I just recently retired as senior pastor. I pastored for 45 years. Mm-hmm. And I'm still involved in ministry, and I'm still very vocal about a lot of things, and I still, but if I was still pastoring, my church would be totally innovated and totally online coming out of this pandemic. Wow. Because I can see where we can reach more people online than we can inviting them into the four walls. With one post, with one broadcast, you have just went into all the world. You just did it because it's available to the entire world when you go online. So if I was still pastoring, that's exactly what I'd be doing. And we had a lot of seniors in our congregation. We got to the point where we got down to one service where we used to have maybe 2 services on a Sunday. We cut it down to 1 because a lot of them, it was just not as convenient for them to come out again in the afternoon or come out again in the evening. And then you have a lot of them that would miss services. And then even our young people had activities with the schools and things like that. So we started the online giving early years ago so that they would learn how to give when they can't be at church that Sunday. You still give anyway. And it was successful in our ministry. So I'm totally convinced that if I was still pastoring, that's exactly what I would be doing coming out of that pandemic.
Well, my question to you all, and kind of on where I think Charles' mind goes. Okay, but we were very gracious about everything we've watched during the pandemic. You know what I'm saying? Because we were just glad to have content this time around. But as we move forward, I'm just asking you all, do you think that people will be as kind about watching any broadcast that's out there, or are they going to be more discriminating? Because like Charles mentioned, that people were tuning out of broadcasts. So do you think as we move along doing these live that people would be more discriminating about what they watch and how long they watch it. What do you think?
Well, you know what? I think it is really up to the churches to really innovate and make sure what they're showing is significant.
Yeah.
You know, it's one thing, and I think somebody said it earlier. It's one thing just to have a phone up and say you live streaming, but it's another thing to have to treat it like a production. You know what I'm saying? So there's many ways that people are doing this, and if you know, if you want people to join you and to stay with you, then it's got to be exciting. It can't be boring. It can't be dull. It has to be really, really good.
You just hit the nail on the head.
Amen.
You sure
Goes right.
did.
And then the preacher can't preach the same way in terms of you can't preach for an hour and 30 minutes on there. Because people are not going to want to sit and look on their device that long, you know, not the preaching. And then we can do that whole, when you look at a football game, well, that's the football game. And that's just where we are. And so, I mean, you could preach for 14 hours if you want. Now, are people going to be on? That's the question. So you can do what you want, but I wish you all the best. I keep trying to tell the saints, you can get you can preach for however long you want. Go and look. When you're done after Facebook, it is a chart that tells you when people are starting to drop out. It will decline. It shows you what a decline is. You need to see at what moment did people start to decline out of your service. And if they watch the singing, watch your preaching, and then you see at the preaching, you've been preaching now for an hour and 20 minutes, and then you dipped out in an hour, cut it to 45. Not do church as normal, and that is the problem we keep in our heads. And
Yes,
even a lot of times you have to think that a lot of people in our churches are now home in their bed, they're in their slippers, and we're preaching in the collar. I'm definitely here for us keeping things kind of the way we are, but we do have to understand that we're grabbing new people who aren't the churches, and that's a whole nother conversation. I'm just gonna leave that alone.
that's true. And I think we have to be careful, you know, like when we say production, you know, we're out, like, you know, you want it to feel authentic, you know what I mean? Because I don't think they're expecting, you know, too much production, but at the you know, more authenticity, but at least, you know, good quality, especially as much as you can with sound and those kind of things. Will Griffin says humming at the end of service, and he hi to Janet Ramirez, she's online, and he also says no announcements and rambling. That's very interesting. And then Sylvia says, I think we will see more of a hybrid, both in-house and streaming. This will allow social distancing in-house and reaching others at home. Yeah, because I think it's going to be a slow for people coming back to church. I do. They're coming back slow to everything. And I think they're going to take their time, as Terrence said, because, you know, they want to, how safe they feel, you know, really. Any other?
And then you got to remember too, our focus, even in our conversations today, is mostly about the worship. But there's more to church ministry than the worship.
Yes.
And so if we take the worship piece, modernize it, innovate it, find different ways to make it a nice production. And I know that might be a word that some people are afraid of when you start talking about church, because they're not used to perfecting things. They just believe in making a joyful noise. And you know, that's all right, baby, you're off tune, but that's all right, keep singing anyway. And so what happens is, if we don't perfect it, if we don't make it like a production, we won't get the kind of response that we need to get in our making things innovative. So if we do that, figure out a way to make the worship technical, innovative, and online, and then all of the other ministries that the church is supposed to be involved in during the week, on Sunday afternoons, or whatever, you know, find ways to still do that. But your money is going to be coming in because of people giving. And that's how you're going to continue to get your support. And they'll do that if you give them something that they can appreciate when they tune in, whether they're tuning in live, in person, or if they're tuning in online.
Linda, I think you're muted, Linda.
Sorry about that.
Uh-huh.
Can you hear me? Okay, very good.
Yes.
Will Griffin says, can quickly clear out of sanctuary. The air handler will make a difference with spread of droplets as well. Okay. Humming and the end lessens cloud of droplets in the air. I mean, it's risky, you know, we're taking, yeah, I mean, go for it, but you know, you just got to calculate those risks and how many people. It's going to take a lot of trial, and you know, we don't want too much error because of its people involved, but you know, just big safety first and in what we're doing, and less is going to be more, right?
You know, it's interesting because first of all, Linda, thank you for this awesome opportunity to share with everybody in this manner. But I want to let everybody know on the panel and everybody that's watching, this is definitely a topic that we need to keep up and keep talking about it. Because the bottom line is, it's not going to be solved just in my area or just in your area, but as a collective group, we can definitely continue and create this new normal that will be effective. You know, so I think it's very important that we keep the conversation going, even if it's a month from now, to see where we've gone from today, even a month from now. How will that be? You know what I'm saying? Because you know, people need to know. People need to know. And you know, Charles, thank you, man. I definitely saw some of some of the Zooms that you had, where you had a lot of the well-known directors in the you know, in the nation, and you talked about different things, and that's very, you know, stuff like that. We need that, because if we're going to be at home, you know, it's nice to just see some other things when it regards to, or when it comes to what we do in ministry, ministry of music, ministry of the word, whatever the case may be. So, you know, all of you that's innovating, you know, Chris, all of you that's innovating, Terrence, all of you that's innovating, Dr. Hudson, man, all of you that's innovating, let's keep the innovation up and let's keep it going, and you know, let's make it happen, and we will get through this.
Yeah, absolutely. And it does take the conversation, just being aware of what everyone else is doing, thinking about it, thinking it through, and that you're not crazy. You know, your idea of the mass sounds amazing. You know, like I said, what Chris is doing, everybody's doing, it is good. And this is the only way we can learn. We got to invite others until we, you know, we got to keep sharing. We got to keep inviting others to be a part of the conversation, so that to affect the change, right? So we do this every 2 weeks, and I agree, we do want to come back. Charles, thank you. Thanks to all of you for being a part of this conversation.
Thank you.
And we do want to have you back again, and keep our conversations going. Come back for the radio. You're going to learn some amazing things, what radio people are thinking during this time. We need to keep talking to each other, take some of those ideas back, and you know, as you said, that's how it's going to spread. We have to communicate. So I hope you all have a great weekend. The next one again is June 27th. We'll share more information, and that'll be radio, but we will come back around, Greg. We're not dropping the ball. We're on the move with this, and we appreciate the conversation with everybody. Hope you have a safe and wonderful weekend.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank
You
you.
all take care.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Have
you.
a great
Bye-bye.
one. Take care.
Thank you. All right, good evening.